Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Untangle 101 webinar series. Today, we'll be discussing Untangle's NG Firewall product and how it can help you in your network environment. If you're unfamiliar with Untangle, then this webinar is perfect for you. My name is Shannon Miles. I'm part of the product marketing team here, and I'll be your host today. And I have with us Chad McNaughton, who's our sales engineer, and he'll be taking us through the presentation and demo our NG Firewall product. Just a few housekeeping rules before we get started. If you do select to use a phone, you will need to use to dial in and use the code provided. You can also use your computer speakers. And as always, you can ask questions. On the right-hand side, there's a questions box. So we have some team members on hand that are there to help answer any questions that you may have. And as always, this webinar is being recorded, so you'll be able to rewatch or share this webinar. The link will be sent out 24 hours after this webinar has ended. And if we don't get to your question, or if you would like a specific demonstration, you can contact us at sales@untangle.com or our support at untangle.com. And with that, I'll pass it over to Shad.
All right. Thanks, Shannon. And thanks everyone again for joining us today. I'm glad you took the time to come in and take a peek at Untangle. This is a fun time of year. School's starting, fiscal years are changing over, that kind of stuff. So our goal today really is in this webinar is to just introduce Untangle to anyone who's really unfamiliar with it. Like Shannon said, if you're a longtime daily Untangle admin user, this really isn't the webinar for you. As part of our 101 series, this is a very general overview intended for a general audience. So just for reference, we won't be diving into the technical aspects of the Untangle software. We won't be fielding many deep technical questions. If you do have technical questions, please let us know, support@untangle.com, and let one of the support techs take a look. With that being said, there's a lot about Untangle you may not know. So let's get into a bit of the background here. Despite Untangle's kind of up-and-comer status, we were actually founded in 2003. We were founded in San Jose, California. We also have an office here in Arvada, Colorado, where I work, as well as a couple of remote engineers here throughout the world. You maybe never heard of us, which is fine. We have been around a while, and word of mouth is getting out. That's a very strong source for us, and we take pride in knowing that our customers are some of our strongest advocates. A lot of the stuff I hear with pre-sales customers is my friend who's an admin here uses Untangle and loves it, et cetera, et cetera. And we love getting leads like that. Word of mouth is getting really big, and it's building. Being able to stand by a product and know that it works well is kind of a breath of fresh air for me as a support engineer, as a sales engineer, all that stuff. This is nice because we live in a day and age where fluff and techie buzzwords are what are marketed to the IT world sometimes, and that's how some companies try to win business. Untangle really doesn't have to do that. We don't bother with it because the product tends to kind of sell itself. As you can see, some of our main verticals here, our main markets are small and medium businesses, the government edge sector, and as well as private, public, and nonprofit sectors around the world. We do have currently just over 40,000 Untangle installations worldwide, whether our hardware, their hardware, or in a virtual environment. And I mean, not to brag, but we are starting to win quite a lot of awards. We just won a Cody Award and a Govy Award, as well as Cyber Defense Magazine and an InfoSec Award. They honestly just keep coming. So as we grow and move the product forward, these keep coming up, and we love it. So follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and you can stay up to date with all the awards and blog posts and things like that. So let's talk about the problem with your network security. One of the problems is that there's no longer just one problem anymore. As the slide says here, security is critical, but we do understand that time and budget can be major limitations sometimes for some organizations. Untangle does have a lot of different resources with public sector pricing, nonprofit pricing, that kind of thing. With our deployment options, we can really tailor things to fit your network and your budget. The solution, obviously, to problems on your network will be knowledge. Knowledge of what's actually happening on the network, seeing who's doing what. That's really the first step, getting visibility into the network. And then you can take control. Depending on the complexity, the risks that have been assessed on your network, We need some knowledge. We need some insight into the activity on your network. As technology grows and evolves, we as IT admins and managers have to keep up with these challenges. Things are changing really, really fast now. For example, a few challenges might look like these: complexity of your network. You know, there are more devices than ever. There's just so many devices hopping on your network, whether they're mobile devices or local devices. These have to be managed and secured. The first step to that is identifying, getting something like Untangle in place to identify the devices on your network and get a peek into their traffic. That's really kind of the first step. Another challenge that's kind of come up pretty quick here in the last 5-6 years is bandwidth. Everyone needs tons of bandwidth now. We understand that some places don't have a ton of bandwidth even available. You know, there are some rural customers, you know, small libraries out in the country that don't have a lot of bandwidth. So when you do things like standardized testing or sites and web apps, streaming media, things like that, these are all going to compete for your resources. So with Untangle, we do traffic shaping at layer 3 and layer 7, and we can kind of get some control of your bandwidth like that if you need it. Another issue is just the number of connections. There are a lot of different devices connecting to your network, generating sessions. Untangle, you know, supports millions of sessions concurrently, and some devices can be bogged down by that, obviously. Unknown guest devices, IoT devices, things like, you know, your Amazon devices, your networked thermostat, things like that, they can connect to your network unannounced. Some of them can even generate SSL traffic. Things like that have to be identified, and whether they're going to be filtered or bypassed through Untangle, that's up to you, obviously. But once they're identified, we can see all the devices that are actually connecting to your network, and then take some steps if we need to throttle them or filter them. And then obviously one of the biggest problems that's evolved here, you know, over especially the last 5, 6, 7 years, are threats from things like malware and spyware and ransomware. Adware, malvertising, things like that are becoming pretty prevalent, but we're all pretty well versed in the ransomware terminology nowadays. You know, these are major problems for networks, and they're always going to be going forward, it feels like. So something like Untangle at your gateway is going to be invaluable. The gateway device is going to be the most important device on your network, I feel, going forward, because we are how people connect, and we're how they get out, and we're also what stops the traffic coming in. So those threats are covered a number of different ways from us, from intrusion prevention, virus blocking, our cloud-based callouts with virus blocking and Scout IQ. A lot of different ways we do that at the gateway. So we try as hard as we can to take your end users out of the malware and ransomware equation. They'll always be the #1 problem. That's just a sad fact. End users are the reason ransomware exists and things like that. They're not trying to put ransomware just on your server so you see it. You know, we want to get down to people who will click on things. Untangle at the gateway can prevent that from ever getting to that end user. So if we take them out of the equation, that's a pretty interesting solution for ransomware, you know, on your network. So something like Untangle at the gateway can be, I think, invaluable going forward in the modern world. So what we're talking about here is, you know, gaining visibility and control on your network. How do we do that? The first thing you want to do is set your rules. The bottom line is, you as an IT admin, as an Untangle admin, this is your network. If you don't currently have something like an acceptable usage policy, an IT use policy in place for employees or guests, I would maybe want one. You know, it's just recourse as an IT admin, and then you're able to make the rules that users agree to. You know, it's the kind of thing where you put a little portal in front of your Wi-Fi, for example. Please agree to our terms, check the box, then you'll be granted access. Things like that. It's your network, so you set your rules. Another key aspect of this is getting good reports and alerts. It's hard to come to a user on your network and tell them they're doing something wrong if you don't have documentation of it. This is a requirement for most compliance standards in the States and the UK is very granular reporting. Untangle can retain up to a year's worth of reporting data now. That's obviously going to fill up a hard drive, things like that. So we offload with syslog in Google Drive. But getting granular reporting on every little aspect of network traffic, any packet we're seeing, and then we can set alerts for policy violations. We can set alerts for just about anything that an admin wants to see. If you want to see when a new device pops up on the network, we can set an alert to ping you. If you want to see, you know, if someone has a BitTorrent open, we can set an alert for that, and it will ping you as an admin. A lot of stuff like that, just so you can you know, get a little bit of a grasp into what's happening on the network in real time. And then finally, visibility and control will allow you to enable your employees. You know, we're all getting into, you know, virtual environments, remote work, that kind of stuff. What we're talking about here, though, is effortless protection without really compromising those critical business resources. You know, if you use a lot of shares across a network, you know, things like that, we have to do secure tunnels, things like that. We want that to be perfect and effortless. So without compromising your throughputs, you know, your access to things across the network, Untangle can still be in the middle with the employees safely behind us and enable them to, you know, get out and share across multiple sites, that kind of stuff, and know that they're protected behind it Untangle. This way we can really prioritize what's useful. And then, you know, if we need to, we can just throttle all the non-productive things. We can block what we need to, maybe just turn down the fun on some of those apps, make Facebook miserable to use, stuff like that. So let's talk about the Untangle NG Firewall for a bit. So this is our NG Firewall software platform. It's designed to work like an app store now. So apps are basically plugins. They add functionality to the NG Firewall platform, which is our base install. It's a lot like apps on your smartphone or your tablet now. And we'll look at this on my demo server here in just a few minutes, but we'll talk about how the apps work together by the NG Firewall's integrated rules engine. We really rebuilt our rules engine here over the last version or two dev cycles. It's really powerful and it's really flexible now. So you can really create about any rule or alert that you'd like to in Untangle. It'll let you create granular policies to handle any type of traffic or threat or optimization. Regardless of what your needs are or the complexity of your network or organization, Untangle can handle all of these things. Even better, NG Firewall also includes onboard reporting that lets you drill down not only app by app, but across all applications, either by user, group, time of day. The list goes on and on. This will all come down to how users are coming through Untangle. If you authenticate against a directory like an Active Directory or a Radius server, we'll see usernames. Otherwise, we can do all this stuff either, like I said, like time of day, device, IP, lots of different ways to get folks through Untangle. Once a device's traffic is flowing through Untangle, we're the man in the middle, and we can see reporting on them. We can throttle them. We can do really pretty much anything we want. So what we're looking at here, the platform, you know, this is the NGFW, software platform that we then kind of add apps to, whether it's a complete package or individually. So it's a really modular thing, and it can really, you know, stand up however you want it to. Every data set available, though, in NG Firewall, any packet coming through Untangle, is available to you via reports. So if there's not a report, if you're looking for a report and you don't see it, you know, we'll just make you a custom report, save it, and then there it is. We can throw it as a dashboard widget if we want to as well. We'll get into that in the demo here in just a sec. So you're asking yourself, you know, 15 minutes into this webinar, but where do I even start? How do I even get this going? That's all going to depend on your network, actually. So this slide just depicts the two install options for deploying Untangle. On the left-hand side of the screen, you have what we call the transparent bridge mode. In transparent bridge mode, Untangle is actually installed behind your existing firewall and exists between the firewall router and your main switch or the rest of your network. In bridge mode, as you can see, we're actually behind your router. So, you know, we'll be transparent. You won't need to change default gateways on the endpoint computers. You don't need to change any routes on the firewall. We're just between the firewall and the network, and that's pretty much it. You don't have to change any information. We just slide in as a transparent bridge and then filter in line. As you can see on the right, if router mode is what you're needing, Untangle can be the true gateway and handle all the routing. This will make us the true edge device. When we're serving as router and firewall, the true gateway, you'll definitely need to set up your external and internal interfaces correctly for traffic to flow. So Untangle's external will be the true gateway. So that's something you do have to kind of, you know, take into account. If we're switching out a router for Untangle, obviously some things are going to change on the gateway address. But with either of these deployments, the Untangle features are the same. So keep in mind, Untangle is not a proxy and cannot be set up as a proxy. Untangle is an inline filter where all traffic has to flow through it in order to be filtered. If your network is a tree, Untangle has to be on the trunk. We can't be a proxy out on a tree branch, things like that. Let's see here. Before we jump to this next slide, Shannon, do we have any quick questions that are relevant?
We had a question about, I think this will be more for when we do a demo, but can Untangle help with devices that are in the network and already have viruses or malware? Is there any way to kind of identify those? But I think you'll be able to show those in the demo.
I can. The quick answer is not entirely. Once it's beyond Untangle, that's an endpoint solution. You'll need to do something like Malwarebytes or Norton, whatever antivirus policy you have there. Um, that's rare for us. When Untangle is at the gateway, not much gets through. But if we come in later and there's already a machine infected, yeah, there's not a lot we can do about it. So you would just want to run, some A/B stuff and clear that out. And then
I
once it's
think,
behind Untangle, I doubt it happens again.
yeah, I think it was more of like, can you identify them, which the reporting I think can showcase.
Yeah, we
Which,
might be able to with reporting, sure. A lot of times an infected machine like that on your network will do some very, very strange things, obviously. Excuse me, depending on what it's infected with, we will see, like a rogue PC on the network. That'll show in the sessions, obviously, and our service called Shield can actually shut that internal traffic down. So if something does get infected on the inside of the network, yes, we'll probably be able to identify the machine IP, but no, there's not a lot we can do to clean the actual virus off. So let's jump into a couple of features here real quick, then we'll get into a quick demo. So obviously, the right network solution will provide protection and policy enforcement, while maximizing user productivity and satisfaction. I think every network in the world now faces external threats like attacks, viruses, phishing, spam, but there's also faces internal threats from bandwidth and productivity draining apps, inappropriate websites, things like that. Like I was saying, something that gets through into the network, is an infected machine. Obviously, isn't part of our purview, but from the bandwidth and productivity draining app aspect, obviously we would go in and do some traffic shaping, some throttling. And to complicate matters, there are certain network policies that might apply to one group, like your marketing department, and not another group, like your finance department. So the Untangle solution will provide you protection, filtration, performance, and management. We'll show you how some of that stuff works here in just a minute on a demo. So some of the main benefits of putting something like Untangle on your network. Untangle is a very low cost and simple, pretty much plug and play setup and deployment. We do have a lot of options for deploying, and the setup wizard is faster and simpler than it's ever been. The last time I stood up in Untangle, it honestly took me about 6-7 minutes, and I was up and running with traffic flowing. This is a great way to prioritize bandwidth for those business critical cloud-based apps. If you guys do a lot of stuff out on the web and are using these web apps that are becoming so popular, we can obviously prioritize the bandwidth for those and then deprioritize things that could take away or clog the pipe a little bit. Untangle will also prevent policy violations from common filter avoidance techniques like proxies or going over SSL, port hopping, things like that. Another thing that we can do is block IP-only hosts. So my favorite example that I saw on YouTube recently is when a high school student who has YouTube blocked goes to YouTube with command open running ipconfig. He then sees the IP address that YouTube calls out to, enters that into his browser directly, and is on YouTube because they're not blocking the IP, just the host name. We can actually block that IP as well. So while we can't prevent things like proxies and port hopping and SSL, we can absolutely block IP-only hosts too. Untangle will also allow you as an admin to respond to incidents quickly with our comprehensive reporting and full drill down capabilities. Like I said, if a packet's coming through Untangle, we can get all the way down. We can get latitude, longitude off an IP address now. So our session viewer is an invaluable tool because you can get all that information there off of any session that's coming through Untangle. We also obviously, like I was stating earlier, try to keep end users safe from malware, attacks, and other threats like that before they ever reach their computers and mobile devices. The way that works is Untangle is your gateway. When a virus or a threat comes through, we either stop it locally with our virus blocking, or maybe it calls up to our Scout IQ threat assessment cloud where we pull down the information from there. We have a lot of different methods for blocking threats and things like that now. And then also you can manage your guest Wi-Fi, BYOD programs, things like that, with policies that are really easy to set up and enforce. Things like BYOD, maybe they're coming in on a specific wireless access point. If that's plugged into the back of Untangle, we can filter based on that actual interface. Whether it's IP, interface, usernames, there's a lot of different ways to push people through Untangle, but just know that anything coming through us can obviously be filtered with different policies and pushed through separate apps and filtering. Speaking of our cloud, let's talk about Untangle's command center real quick. Untangle built our cloud infrastructure around the end of last year, the beginning of this year, and it's doing a couple of really interesting things. The first I mentioned is Scout IQ. That's our cloud-based threat assessment aggregation platform. The second aspect is Untangle Command Center. This is our cloud-based centralized management for all your NG Firewall boxes. You can see the status of all your sites in one place. You'll see threats and alert histories. You can drill down to a specific box and get reporting from it. You'll also be able to see licensing, software updates, and backups there because we've actually moved your account page into this command center now. You'll get really valuable audit logs. These are requirements for most regulatory compliances here in the States and in the UK. And then you can also quickly and easily manage policies across various deployments and different boxes from here. The really fun thing is that you can remote manage each appliance through our secure SSH tunnel. So it's a one-click remote access. And if we jump in over here to my command center, this is basically going to bring up a demo account that I have. So this is going to show a few demo boxes with a little bit of traffic. And you can see that this is a fairly similar looking dashboard. It'll give you a little geolocation. And as I scroll down, this is showing all my devices. All these host names are individual Untangle boxes. It's showing any alerts from every box, audits, any blocked threats, some reports that I've got posted here on my dashboard. But as I was mentioning, you can jump into any appliance that you'd like. So if you want remote access, it's available with one click through our SSH tunnel. And it'll show your licensing and any CPU loads. It's basically the same dashboard we just saw, but drilled down into this specific device. There's a little bit of customization here, obviously, with these reports. If you want to add a server, it's available there. And then over here on policies, this is where we're going to be able to create policy and push it across devices. So there's a lot of aspects to Command Center. It's doing a lot of stuff, but it is fairly new. You know, it's one of our newer products. It's coming along really, really quickly, and it's becoming very popular. As I said before, we also have our account page in here now. So this is where you can actually see all your billing info and your subscriptions and invoices. All that stuff's available. And then, like I said, some more things are coming. You know, you can look up a MAC address, a URL here, and then this is just an account level thing. When you jump out of this, it just takes you back into your account. So if you're a little bit experienced with Untangle, you're used to this screen, but we're moving away from that. We're getting everything in the command center now. So what we're doing is full cloud-based centralized management. This has been a goal for Untangle for a long time, and I'm personally, as a sales engineer, very excited about this because I have about 3-4 Untangle devices, and I like to see them all in one place and remotely log into them and manage them. So it's doing exactly what we want to so far. It's actually a really cool thing. There's pricing available on our website. Under cloud here, you can just go to Command Center on untangle.com, and it'll let you read a little bit more about it and jump over to the pricing. So let's take a quick peek at the actual Untangle solution. So we're going to jump over here to my live demo server. For your reference, this is demo.untangle.com. You can jump on and play around anytime. It's live 24/7. There's no password needed. So what you'll see here is a little bit of spoof traffic. We're going to go do a quick little overview of these 4 main interfaces in the Untangle GUI. We're going to look at the dashboard, the apps, the config, and the reports viewer. This is going to be a fairly fast overview, obviously. We're getting a little bit low on time here, so obviously we're not going to go real deeply into the technical aspects of what all these apps are doing. We're going to just show you, some of the hot topics and show you how they work together. So the dashboard is maybe the only one like this in our industry because it's completely customizable. As you can see, we have, by default, server metrics across the top, geolocation over here. These are just sessions generating to and from my Untangle box. If there are sessions from weird parts of the world that I don't do business with and I want to go look at them, I can just click on one of these dots and it'll take me into our session viewer, narrowed down by that country. As you can see, there's a lot of information available here. As I was mentioning before, latitude and longitude. This is mostly spoof demo traffic, so normally you'll see that there. And then you'll see the country code as well. There's a ton of information available right here on our dashboard and on the sidebar. However, if you're not seeing a piece of information you're looking for, you can click this little drop-down caret and hover over columns, and you may see something else you're looking for. I was looking for SSL traffic with inspected SSL traffic, so now I'm seeing that as well. As I mentioned before, our sessions viewer is a great tool. it's going to show you anything that's happening with that packet coming through. It's going to show you the pipeline, any applications that are coming through in the filtering. And then, like I said, geolocation. So if there are parts of the world you don't want communication with, either to or from, that's a very simple thing to set up with Untangle. And then as we scroll down, you'll see these are really just reports. So we're looking at top applications by size right here, the number of bytes grouped by application. But let's say I wanted to look at the full report. So we can just click right here and go see the full report. So this is going to pull up the full report. I obviously maybe don't care about the HTTP section, so I'm going to click right there and make that go away. If I wanted to fully customize this report, I could do that right here. You can go pretty crazy with Untangle customized reports. For the most part, we come in and we change a condition or two to make it the exact report you want. We update the name, and then we save it as a new report. From there, we can either add it to our dashboard, we can do some quick customization to actually customize the chart, not the report, just what we're seeing. Or if we're looking for a specific client or user, we can do a quick add, either client ID, username if you're using authentication. And then from there, if you want to, you can always download a quick little image of this to shoot to, an HR director or someone like that who doesn't want to be an admin, but needs to see a quick peek at that traffic. So we can do all kinds of stuff like that with the reporting. And the dashboard, like I said, is completely customizable because you can manage all of this from here. So if you want to see these query events right up at the top, let's just drag it up there. So now it's sitting right there. There's a lot of different ways to do this, and we can actually come in and do a search. Maybe I've created a report that has usernames and I want to see all those reports. If we start typing username, the new Untangle version 13 report search box is going to pop all of those. This is really kind of my favorite addition for version 13 here because this is a huge reporting database. If we jump over here to the actual reports viewer, you can see that by default, we have about 300-400 reports built in. This is a lot of information to parse through, obviously. So if you just want to see top sites, for example, you can just start typing now. It's a very dynamic search tool. The only other thing really quick to cover here on the dashboard and reports is the full session viewer. Like I said, this is every session coming through Untangle with all that good info. The host viewer, which is going to show the actual hosts behind your Untangle. And devices is any device the Untangle's ever seen. And so we'll see MAC addresses here, we'll see MAC vendors, and then also this is where we can put in a tag. So this is new for Untangle version 13. If I wanted to tag this device as a Facebook user or a BitTorrent or not safe for work, I can do that, and now I can create a policy based on that tag if I want to. It's just another way to push people through Untangle, just giving you a few more options. And then another new addition for version 13 here is our Users tab. In the past, we've only been able to put quotas onto a device, for example, or a certain application site. Now we can actually put a quota on a username. So if I wanted to give myself a quota, I would put my username in here, and I would come give myself a brutally low quota. So I've got 50 kilobytes now. So once I sign on, I'll probably get kicked off. It's all up to you. You can create quotas, issue times, expiration times. If you feel like I've been good for the first hour of the day, you can come delete my quota. It's a real simple thing. So that's the dashboard and the reports viewer. There's a lot of information available there, and the reporting in Untangle is world-class. Like I said earlier, we can keep up to a year's worth of data. We can offload with Syslog and Google Drive. And we do meet every compliance standard that I've found in the North America and abroad in Europe. Let's take a quick peek here at the config menu. So what we're looking at here is going to be all layer 3 stuff for the most part. This is going to be where we'll find our QoS rules, troubleshooting tabs, routing options, things like that. A lot of this will come down to how Untangle is installed. If we're installed into router mode, some of these things will be a lot more useful for you than others, like DHCP and DNS, things like that. If Untangle's in a bridge mode, you may not ever use those, but you'll still have all this available. And some of the important things that we do are port forwarding. Port forwarding and natting. In an older world, we called those DNatting and SNatting. This is just getting traffic from outside through the Untangle going to somewhere else. Untangle's bypass rules in version 13 are getting really, really handy and easier to use. One of my favorite new additions to Untangle is that we have our conditions exposed in our rules. in the past, you would have to click edit over here to see what the actual condition was doing. Now we don't have to do that. We can see that this rule number 1 is bypassing port 5060. So we're trying to bypass SIP traffic on the traditional port and IAX2 port because we don't want to filter our voice over IP devices. When you put a device like this into a bypass rule, and these are built in by default for Untangle, that device's traffic, for one, comes off of your licensing. So you're no longer paying to filter these voice over IP devices. And 2, it removes them from the layer 7 application filtering. That's the reason it really comes off of your licensing. So you might ask, well, if I bypass some traffic and it's taken out of layer 7, how do I control it now? How do I shape those packets? We do that over here on the Advanced tab through Quality of Service. This is also where we have our new algorithm to reduce your buffer bloat. It should be the Fairflow queuing by default. That's going to reduce low priority packet latency and just overall latency on your networking gear. The absolute number 1 first day thing you need to do if you're going to use QoS, when you enable it, please enter your maximum down and up speeds from your ISP on each WAN you have, if you have multiples. Once those are entered, we can set true prioritization. But if we don't know what your max speeds are, things can break. We don't really know what to work with. So just go in and enter your ISP speeds here. And then if you want, you can start setting up quality of service rules. We have built-in rules for VoIP, obviously, very high priorities. But if you're not getting good call qualities, maybe the very high priority needs to change. You can change all that stuff right here. This is also where we can do forward filter and input filter rules. You don't need to touch this. It's layer 3 firewalling. There's a lot of fun stuff built in for you. And then for things like at a home market, we also have UPnP built in. If you enable this, it's going to do some automatic port forwarding for you on your home network. So you can do things like, specifically like hosting an Xbox Live party or a PlayStation Network party. It's kind of a home market type thing. And then on the troubleshooting tab, I always like to point this out because as an admin, this stuff is invaluable. So this is where we can do speed test, trace routes, quick pings. If you do a quick ping from inside your Untangle, to say Google DNS and you don't get results, or if you're just sailing right out and getting constant pings, that's a really great troubleshooting step you can take before we're ever even involved on a support side. So some of that stuff lives right here in the Network Advanced Troubleshooting tab. So back on the config menu, just a couple things I want to touch on real quick before we move on to the apps. That's where the fun stuff is. On the administration tab, this is where we set up your admin accounts. I get a question pretty much once a week about different levels of admin permissions. We don't do that. We do administrator permissions. So if you set up an admin account, that user has full access to the Untangle GUI because admin is short for administrator, so there are no different permissions levels. We can set up other users as reports users if you want to send them, summary emails, reports data. They don't have to be an administrator to get that kind of stuff. We'll show you how that works in just a second. And then also, with new Untangle version 13, if you like, you can always go back to the old skin. We have a lot of fun graphic skins in there. If you like the old rack view, it still lives there. Untangle can also create local users. If you don't authenticate against a directory and you want to have usernames, you can add usernames here in the local directory and leverage that with our authentication. We can also, obviously, tie into Active Directory, Radius, and a few other options as well. This is also where we would set up your alerts. So this has moved for Untangle version 13. It lives out here under config events now. And like I said earlier, we can set up just about any alert you want because we've really opened up this rules engine. So you can really build anything you'd like. There's a lot of conditions to pull from. The triggers over here tie into the tags I mentioned earlier. So this is all new for version 13 here. So this is, we're about 5-6 weeks into the tags and triggers. What this trigger right here, number 3, will do, it's going to tag a host. So you can see that anytime a host on my network uses the mobile application BitTorrent, we're going to see that log event from application control. And then my trigger here is going to tag that host with the tag BitTorrent use. And I want that tag to live for a long, long, long time because I always want that tag to pop up on my network when this person comes back so I can set up a policy where they don't get BitTorrent, things like that. So there's some really interesting things we can do with those tags and triggers based on really anything you want. The tag is a very open-ended label that you just type up, and then you can assign it to any kind of trigger. And then this is where the syslog events live. I mentioned we can keep up to a year's worth of data. I would recommend setting up some syslog events to offload that. Anything over a month or so, we always recommend offloading. So let's talk about apps for a second. If you've seen Untangle in the past, before version 13, this is very different looking. We used to do a traditional kind of server rack inspired GUI. That was part of our old UI code, which was basically we'd hit the end of the line with. So we decided to rebuild that stuff from the ground up. So this is our new admin user interface. It's a lot faster. The pages load a lot quicker. My favorite addition is that you can actually use the back button to get to a screen that no longer takes you out of your virtual environment and makes you log back in. As an Apple user, my magic mouse does that to me, a couple times a day. So it's just a blessing. I like that a lot. We don't have modal windows anymore in our interface, so you can actually use the URL up there. That's an actual URL. You can jump back to pages, you can go back, all kinds of fun stuff. So we obviously don't have enough time to talk about all of these. This is our NGFW complete package with every app we have installed. This is my demo server. I'm going to show you guys how we do a couple of things real quick, like web filtering with SSL inspection. I feel like web filtering is obviously a very hot topic, but I feel like the SSL inspection has become almost a necessary evil if you want to really truly filter content on the internet in 2017. They estimate that about 80% of all internet traffic now is HTTPS. And without SSL inspection, making you the man in the middle, you'll never be able to stop that stuff. While some things can catch HTTPS traffic without a root certificate or SSL inspection, those are becoming a little bit outdated. So sometimes a filter will tell you it's blocking HTTPS, but we'll see it's only blocking host names, like with server name indication information. That's not a very complete solution anymore. So what we'll do is a 2 or 3 prong approach to honestly blocking filtering content. The first step, let's look at web filter. So once we get into the web filter menu, we'll see some stats, and then all the reports are available right here. And these are some of the best reports that Untangle offers by default. We'll see things like top categories by request. What's the category that people are trying to go to the most? That's a very good piece of information. If you're not blocking that category and it's harmful, malicious, non-productive, then maybe you should. So we can do a lot of really fun things just by looking at reports and then web events, blocked events, see who's doing what, who's getting blocked. Untangle's categorization is provided by a company called Zavello, and we're, I think, at about 700 million URLs categorized now. So that's all they do, and they take it very seriously, and they do a great job. So we are part of their corporate culture, as they were a company we helped stand up a few years ago. They're still here in Denver, just about 30 minutes from my office in Colorado, and they've got some really big clients now. This has become an industry standard URL database. Huge companies leverage this now, as well as little old Untangle. And when you get into web filter, you'll see that not everything is locked out of the box by any means. So depending on your network, your users, you'll definitely want to come in and start blocking some of these things. We can also do a quick lookup if you're not sure how something is categorized. We can come over here and do a quick search, and then you'd want to block social networking to block that site's category. So that's a pretty simple step. We also obviously have just a blacklist and whitelist. Our whitelist is absolute. It will supersede any blocking over here. And if you have an existing filter that you're coming from, moving to Untangle, if you can export your black and white list as a JSON file, we can actually import those to reduce a little bit of downtime. Pass clients, we can simply pass your device through the web filter. Old Jerry here doesn't want his device filtered on the web, so we have him in a client pass rule. That's all it does. It just passes you through web filter. All the other layer 7 stuff still applies. And then on the rules tab, this is a little bit new for Untangle. So in the past, we'd have to go make a separate policy if one person in a group needed different permissions. We don't have to do that anymore. So now we can create a lot of different rules based on devices, usernames, IPs, and then give them access to things, even as far down as a mobile application. So we don't exactly have to create a separate policy to give 1 or 2 people different permissions or rules or filtering anymore. We still can. It's a very absolute way to do it with a separate policy, but this is 5 or 10 clicks versus 20 or 30 clicks creating a new policy. So it kind of depends on how you want to do it. And then on the advanced tab, this is something I always want to point out because I just talked about it. This tells you you're processing HTTPS traffic by SNI, and we can do that. I'll encourage you to do it. but this is a host name block. This is not a URL block. SNI information is not constantly presented anymore. So this is becoming a little bit outdated. So the true way to to filter HTTPS secure traffic is with man-in-the-middle deep packet inspection, which is provided by pushing the Untangle root certificate to a device. So within our SSL inspection, we can download our root cert and the installer right here, choose some connection protocols on the client and server side, and then you can deploy that cert a number of ways. On Active Directory, we can do it through group policy. You can do it locally with the gateway IP. You can do it through a captive portal where you require the certificate. That's great for mobile devices even. But the magic that happens occurs over here on the Rules tab. Facebook specifically is rule number 8 here. So if you look at this, it's very simple. We want to see any certificate subject coming across port 443 that says the word Facebook anywhere in it. We just tell ourselves to step in. Without that rule in place, we'll never be able to block Facebook or throttle it or anything. It's because they're all HTTPS. So you can see some of these are SNI rules because those are search engines. So those will present, obviously, host names. So depending on what you need, how you need to do it, we just come in here and create a quick rule, and then it makes Untangle the man in the middle, and we can step in and analyze SSL traffic. Let's touch on a couple of quick ones here before we open it up for any questions. I did want to touch on our actual bandwidth control and application control apps because they're just best friends. They work together really well. They do really interesting things. Let's touch on app control first. So the delineation we need to make now is we're no longer talking about filtering the web. That's web filter. Now we're in application control. So now we're talking about mobile application signatures. Also, great reporting in here. You can see the top applications being used on your network. You know, this is kind of a mobile device type peak. And then over here on the application list, we do have a ton of signatures. This is provided by a database provider we leverage, and it grows and grows and grows every version. You can see BitTorrent is available right there. If I want to block BitTorrent, I can. If I want to do something like tar pitting it, however, I can do that too. You can see that's an either or thing, and the rule over here that explains it is a beautifully written rule. We talked earlier about people using port hopping apps and VPNs and proxies to get around your Untangle filter. This is how we can kind of dissuade that behavior. So tar pitting is a very interesting option for proxies specifically. When you block instead of tar pit, blocking resets a TCP connection. A lot of these apps, like Tor or UltraSurf, will see that session reset, and they automatically try to port hop, and that never ends until they get around your Untangle. Some users who use a VPN or a proxy are savvy enough to see that as well. You know, you can call them a hacker or whatever you want. If that user is using a VPN proxy on a mobile device to get around me, I'm going to assume they're pretty smart. And they may be smart enough to even see that session reset and know that they got blocked. So the answer to that is tar pit them, because tar pitting also blocks the sessions, but it doesn't reset them. So their traffic is blocked, but that TCP connection never resets. The app doesn't know they're blocked. The user doesn't know they're blocked. So rather than getting mad and trying even harder to get around your filter, they get frustrated and they tend to give up, because tar pitting will never connect their traffic and will never let their app port hop. So it's a very interesting option if that's an issue on your network. And then from there, we can come into something called bandwidth control and do actual layer 7 traffic shaping. So let's run through this little control wizard real quick, just so I can show you what it looks like. So depending on your network, we're going to just run through this guy and choose some options. I've got my up-down speeds already set. From here, you can choose a lot of different configs. So it kind of depends on what you're looking at. I'm going to choose a school. You can see some of the benefits are, you know, it's going to optimize traffic for interactive services, you know, websites, things like that. And it's going to deprioritize peer-to-peer, non-real-time background stuff, updates, you know, MS updates, all kinds of stuff like that. And then if I want to enable quotas as well, I can do that here, and I always will because those are fun. And then done, close, and now I should have about 20, 25 rules pre-built. Yeah, there's a bunch of them. This is a top-down order for any packet coming through Untangle. This is how it's shaped. So you can see halfway down, you know, we're deprioritizing unproductive apps thanks to application control, because these two apps are such good buddies. They kind of talk to each other and leverage each other's signatures. There's a lot of fun stuff we can do in here, and the rules are very, very open-ended. So depending on the condition, it's a username, it's a tag, it's a website, it's an app, whatever it is, we have a lot of options. We can set a priority, we can tag that host, or we can give quotas. This is true traffic shaping at layer 7. If there's a device, a service, anything like that coming through Untangle that you need to shape and prioritize or throttle, this is where we can do that. And we try to make it as easy as possible. Last 2 things I want to touch on before we wrap up here are Directory Connector and Policy Manager. I encourage everybody here to jump on the demo server or download a trial of Untangle and play around with this stuff. We obviously don't have enough time in an hour to go over every app. That would be a little bit speed talking for me. But some of these are crucial. Directory Connector, like I mentioned earlier, is how we connect to your Active Directory. This is how we can leverage authentication. So this is going to fundamentally change Untangle for you. And this is a requirement for a lot of compliance standards, at least in the States and in the UK, is having granular reporting down to the username level. So they have to authenticate. When that happens, we really just come in and enter your AD info, run a test, and then you can create policy based on usernames, based on AD groups. It would really be determined by how your Active Directory is set up. And we can also authenticate against the Radius server, a number of other ways. With our notification API on your domain controller, any authentication is passed to us. And then we can create policies based on those users, those groups, however you want to do it. If you're not authenticating, we can do source address is, these devices go through these policies. These devices go through these. Maybe employees and students get Facebook and Twitter open from noon to 1, Monday through Friday. There's a ton of conditions available to create an actual policy. Well, when we say that, it's a set of apps and filters for a group of people or devices. So however you want to segment your network, however you want users to be separated, we can do that right there through the policy management, almost regardless of how they're connecting through the Untangle authentication or no authentication. All right, let's jump back over here to the slideshow real quick. We'll get wrapped up. Untangle does have a lot of deployment options. You hear me talk about that a lot, and if you ever get on a live demo with me, we'll go into that for 10, 12 minutes. Open source is more secure, and we love it. Our software is more flexible when it's open source. Modular is more cost effective. So we tend to be modular, a la carte, and open source. Untangle runs Linux Debian, which is a very powerful Linux distro, and it's the kernel Debian Jessie has been very stable for us for 2.5 versions now. So we love open source. We love the flexibility and the modularness of the Untangle solution and the deployment options. If you're looking into Untangle appliances, we do offer kind of 3 levels. If you're looking at the Soho SMB market, maybe a little branch office, we have some little desktop models. The U25 is a really slick little box. It's got no moving parts. It's a solid state drive, no fans. It's a little bitty box for a desktop. We also do 1U rack mounts though for kind of a mid-market, throw it on a server rack. And then we do corporate, kind of large campus 2U rack mounts. We're looking at, 1,500, 3,000 devices, that kind of thing. If you're curious about some current customers, there's a lot of them giving testimonials on untangle.com now. I think some of these are very, very good to kind of get through in your research phase. If you're a similar kind of organization, if you're a small city, if you're a big school district, we have a lot of case studies available on the Untangle resources page here. If you go to untangle.com and click on resources, you'll find our forums, case studies, all the webinars and videos are uploaded right there. If you click on that, it'll show you all our upcoming webinars as well. And then anything that's recorded, you can see our super handsome sales engineer, Chad, talking at RSA, all kinds of fun stuff. And then if you want to download a trial of Untangle, it's available right there on the site. There are a few different distros here. The VMware Virtual Appliance OVA, I just want to let you know, it is 64-bit only. If you guys grab that, just give your VMware more than 4 gigs. But we do have firmware for Linksys. We're looking at ARM architecture. We go 32 and 64-bit, ISO, IMG. If you want to throw those into a different hypervisor to test with, you'll get a 2-week free trial of everything Untangle makes. And during that free trial, we also offer you live support. So if you're on a trial and you're stuck, you can't figure out something that based on a YouTube video you're watching, just pick up the phone and please give our support team here in Colorado a call and let someone jump on and help you out because you'll have support during that trial. All right, I think that's my spiel here for you guys. Shannon, do we have any questions sticking out there?
Yeah, we had a few come in.
Okay.
Can you kind of go over how Untangle does their licensing? I know there was some questions about,
Sure.
the device limits and everything.
Yeah, you bet. Untangle uses the Linux IP tables to license. So we license by unique/concurrent IP addresses. So within that, that's why I always mention the bypass rules. Those are crucial. So printers, faxes, security cameras, voice over IP, all that stuff should be bypassed because it doesn't call out and you don't want to filter it. We do have a frequently asked questions section on our wiki here that goes real deep into the licensing, but we do license by unique IP addresses and non-WAN. So unique concurrent IPs in a 24-hour period. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, let's see. You mentioned the appliances. People are kind of asking about hardware requirements, if they use their own server.
Sure. One of my favorite things about Untangle is how transparent we are. All of our pricing's online. All of our hardware specs are online. If you're looking at building a piece of hardware, honestly, the quickest, easiest thing you can do is come look at the, kind of relevant piece of hardware that we've got and look at the guts. So, this one's got a dual core Pentium with 4 gigs and 6 NICs on it and a terabyte hard drive. So we do have a hardware requirements FAQ over there on the wiki if we want to post that. But you can just go kind of look at our tech specs and kind of go off of what we do for the same device band.
There was a question about guest Wi-Fi and how Untangle can do that. I know you kind of mentioned OpenVPN, but maybe you can show that quickly how you can create the acceptable use page and.
Yeah, let's look at the captive portal here real quick. So yeah, guest Wi-Fi, BYOD, all that kind of stuff is very hot. Because we license by IPs, this can drastically change things, because you have a lot of devices hopping on. If you're a small school with 100 computers and then suddenly at a football game 300 people show up with their cell phones on your Wi-Fi, well, that changes things, obviously. So it's going to come down to whether or not you want to filter that Wi-Fi traffic. We can either bypass the entire access point on an interface on Untangle. We can make some bypass rules, by IP. Or if you want to truly filter those devices, we would create a captive portal page where they agree to your use policy, and you can force the Untangle certificate to that device. If I come on your Wi-Fi with my Android phone, and you stand up a portal that requires the cert, I have to agree to download the Untangle certificate to get access to your site. And then you're the man in the middle on my cell phone, and you can do anything you want to. This depends on whether or not you want to strictly step in and filter that mobile device. If you do, we have to push the cert to it. We do that through a captive portal here. And you can change this to authenticate. You can change all the text here yourself, or you can create your own custom page and upload the zip file here. And we can also authenticate if you want to as well.
Great. I think that's about it. I know a lot of people are asking about very specific questions in terms of what would be good on their network. It really depends on what you're trying to do with your network, how many devices, how many apps you're running.
Sure.
So it's not really something we can answer on a webinar. So I would suggest you reach out to sales@untangle.com. They can ask the questions and determine what apps that you should use, an appliance, which appliance you should use, and all that stuff. They are able to better assist you than what we can provide you on this webinar right now.
You bet. Shoot us an email or get me on the phone. Yeah, we'll have a chat.
Yeah, and chat is always available to do demos, so we can set those up if you have a very specific network, that you want to see how it'll work, how Untangle will work in your network. He will be happy to showcase that to you. I think that's about it. Let's see. Let's see. All right, yeah, we're kind of running out of time, so wanted to wrap this up. If we didn't get to your question, I apologize. Please contact us at sales@untangle.com or support@untangle.com. We'll be happy to help. As always, as Chad showed, our website has pretty much every resource available. We're pretty transparent in terms of what our product does and the pricing, so just go on there and you can kind of get an idea of what might work for you. And we do have another webinar later this month. It's a tech talk. Our tech talks are highly technical webinars. John Coffin, who's actually on here helping answer questions, he's our director of QA, and he takes you into a very, very detailed deep dive into that application, the IPsec VPN. So if you have Untangle or are an experienced admin user, this would be a great webinar for you to attend just to get a little more information if you have advanced network settings that you want to do for that application. All right, thank you so much, everyone. Chad is showing our YouTube channel, which has pretty much every webinar we've ever done. So if you need to rewatch this webinar, you can rewatch it. We also have other webinars on there as well. So thank you so much, everyone. Thanks, Chad, for the great presentation, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.